Hello, hello. I have some groovy lo-fi beats going. Oh, there I am. I don't know. I had a bit of a delay there. Hello, hello. Hopefully y'all are enjoying the lo-fi beats as you jump into the stream. As always, remember the chat is open. Feel free to drop any questions or comments or whatever is on your mind in the chat, and I will share with the coaches who are joining me live. Let me also share screen. This live that we do weekly on Tuesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern with the coaches of the CoachRx podcast network is all about just hanging, catching up, sharing some coaching knowledge, and also exposing you all to the shows that we have across the CoachRx podcast network, which is just packed full of awesome coaches who are always creating great content and sharing lots of wisdom. So I hope that you'll check out all of our shows at coachrx.app/podcast-network. You can also jump in and grab the Core 3 coaching frameworks guide that Carl put together, and the one-page marketing plan that I put together for you guys. Those are all linked off of that landing page to jump into those and get all kinds of goodies from us. Today, first off, I'll be having David join me. Let's see what's going on his gram. Looks like he's posted some training recently, some education. So David's going to jump on with us anytime now. And then Brandon will join us about midway through the chat at about 20 minutes in. And lastly, Jason will close us out at the end of the session today. And it looks like David just jumped in, so I will add him to the stage. Welcome, David. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Hanging in there on a Tuesday, which oddly feels more like a Monday to me today.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's Sunday didn't feel like it was supposed to be Sunday either. Weird week already.
How has the week been kicking off for you?
So far, so good. Busy teaching on Mondays. Just I've had a couple clients so far today. Tuesday is probably my day where I have the most in-person training sessions, which is fun.
Yeah. How was the weekend with regionals?
Ooh, Emily tied for first in her weight class for the entire West Coast region. PR'd everything. So 336 squat, 187 bench, and a 408 deadlift, all at 142 and change body weight. So
Awesome.
Qualified for nationals with like 25, 30 kilos of wiggle room. Now we've got about 9 months to just build off of that. So it was great. She had a really good day.
Awesome. I was thinking about you as I was chatting with Charlie as he was checking in on some of his clients this weekend that were competing. He had a master's athlete that also won in her division. And then I don't remember which regionals that she was at. And then a newer athlete that was competing first time who was so close. She tied for first place, but then the other girl won because her weigh-in was lighter.
That was same as Emily. Yeah.
Just
Tied
being
for
a
total,
novice
but
athlete and not really thinking about how to game your attempts and do all that. So I was like, oh, I wonder how David's doing with all the gameplay mode that happens at meets.
Yeah, this was an interesting one because we went in with a conservative game plan. Like number one goal was just hit a national qualifying total. Nothing else really mattered, but ended up being a 10 kilo total PR. So like we had this conservative game plan for first and second attempts, but then she was feeling great. So her handler there, I kind of gave him the green light, some ideas of what to do for third attempts, and then he made good decisions, and she went 9 for 9 and all white lights.
Amazing. Well, today I did have a couple of questions prepared for you all. And one of the first things I wanted to jump into is just because this has been on my mind a lot. Last week, I posted a whole 5-part reel series on how to develop your coaching content signature, which I'm calling basically your content strategy, a way to make your content sound uniquely like you and not like every other coach that's in the market saying similar things or talking about similar things. How do you make it yourself? And so one of the things I started to dig into is using the core belief that drives your coaching business as a way to kind of like spearhead you developing that content strategy. And it got me just thinking about chatting with you guys about that idea of what are, I mean, maybe it's not singular, maybe it's a few, but like if you had to really drill it down to those core beliefs that kind of influence all the decisions you make in your coaching business, are there a few that pop out to you that are worth sharing?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and it's something that it's changed over time and been refined. And when I haven't had a strategy, I think I can look and I can probably kind of assign a bit of consistency or like a theme, even when I wasn't thinking about it, which I think then becomes the strategy, like what's most natural. Trying to replicate, the way I approach a session with an individual and sort of try and represent that via social media. So for me, um, like the client who I really want to work with, if I had to boil it all down, would be someone who is serious about learning how to improve their life via exercise. So then my content is trying to touch on all of those things, like an element of seriousness about the impact of exercise. Um, Definitely want to be educational in my content. I think from like a marketing strategy, if I was gonna pin that down, it'd be something along the lines of I want people to come learn from me, as opposed to like having it come train with me, come buy from me, come, whatever. It's like a come learn from me. That's what I would want someone to feel like they're getting the most of from my page, or even an experience with me as their coach.
Yeah.
Um, and then in terms of like improving their quality of life, touching on some of those things, right? How does training impact life outside the gym? For me, a lot of that is like parenthood and just being able to, do whatever I want for the most part, whenever I want, because of the work that I put in inside the walls of the gym. So right now, that's really sort of those are the pillars of my content strategy. I want something that is demonstrating me as a coach and like my coaching intellect. So a lot of times that's a video of a client doing something and then like a talking head. Here's the thought process. Something with my own training, and then talking about like the decisions I made and why it's working and like why I'm training hard. And then I try and sprinkle in posts like the Fit Dad Thoughts is like the cover image. So that's what's going up today. How does fitness translate to what I do as a dad and like what I want to be able to do, and like the example you set for your kids. And then I like to have something where, I mean, I just think about exercise a lot. I've talked to you about this plenty of times. Like I love to write. And so a lot of my ideas come out, I think, best in written form. So then I try and have one out of every four posts is sort of like a Twitter threads screenshot where it's almost a little more of like a philosophical take on some sort of an exercise concept. So those are my four pillars. It's me as a coach, and educating about the decisions I make, me training myself and why I think it's so important to have a serious training routine, as a fitness professional, right? Like walking the walk is essential. Something about fitness, health, and parenthood, and then something a little more like philosophical, another like snapshot inside of how my brain works.
I love that. And I wasn't even meaning in the context of content strategy for you, like more so even like, yeah, when it comes to just how you're thinking about building your business. I know you and I have talked about this a lot in the context of, I know your positioning sort of evolving, but you using strength as like the bedrock, or
Yes.
you believing strength is the door that opens every other possibility. And so like building a lot of your coaching philosophy and communication around strength.
Yeah. I think, yeah, at this point, it's very much like strength. And so strength is the thing, right? Strength, I think, as always, will be the bottom of the pyramid for me. And then like intellectual strength, like the more you know, the more purposeful choices you get to make. And so leading with education and just trying to spread knowledge so people can make informed choices is super important for me.
Yeah, I love that. Amazing. Well, if you had to like kind of pick that one like flag in the ground to say like, I want to be the coach who's known for X,
Mm.
what is that in your
Yeah,
mind?
I was thinking about this all day after seeing your message. I think that to me, I want to be known as sort of like an individual example of someone who bridged the gap between rehab and training. And then ideally someone who was able to sort of like spread that message and give more people the ability, whether they're a rehab professional getting better at training people, whether they're a training professional getting better at helping prevent the preventable injury, by sort of thinking about rehab as training, training is rehab. It just depends on the context and the phase of someone's life they're in. So yeah, I think that's for me the thing. If I was to pin one thing, it's like that guy's doing the whole bridging the gap thing that we've been talking about for 10 years.
It's so interesting because so I know you and obviously my husband Charlie and then Frank Tardy, who I believe we've connected you to, who's local here as well. You guys are all, similar age group, very similar background and mindset. All three are strength coaches first, PTs second. Maybe I'm assuming that you kind of take that stance, or when you're
I do.
treating patients, you're treating from a resistance standpoint first. There must be something obviously about like your guy, that generation you guys came up in, where you sort of rebelled against like what was the norm of the PT environment. Do you feel like from an education standpoint, like is education changing to kind of lead in the direction that you all have taken your careers, or is it still lagging?
I don't know. I think it is still lagging, but I don't know to what extent it has changed since I was in school 12 years ago.
Do you feel like this is like a question you get from people who are recently graduated and like, hey, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm about to finish school. I don't know if I want to go, in more of an inpatient facility type route, or what I want to do. I think maybe after I did my rotations, is it rotations or
Mm-hmm.
so after I went through and did that process, I didn't enjoy it. I'd rather be in a gym setting. Are you hearing that? Because I know you work with a lot of young coaches coming up that are like not wanting that for their career. Is that pretty common?
Yeah, I mean, I literally just had like recorded a conversation with someone last week talking about my like kind of career path experience for people who are seniors in undergrad on like a pre-physical therapy track. Yeah, I mean, I think it is something that people are seeing a lot more via social media. Like there's a lot more exposure to the role of a physical therapist sort of as, what looks more traditionally like a coach. The the barrier from an education standpoint, from a doctor of physical therapy 3-year foundational education standpoint, is always going to be that those curriculums need to prepare their students to take and pass the national board exam to become a licensed physical therapist. And as much as the coaching stuff is going to be a staple of a good orthopedic practice, it's not necessarily essential if you're thinking about how do you become a good entry level physical therapist that could be competent in any of the settings we could work in and not harm your patients due to negligence. So what I will say is I think for sure over the last few years, what I've noticed is there's way more continuing education focused on getting clinicians to think more like coaches. So that is absolutely
Post grad.
happening, and that's post grad. Yeah, it's a weekend seminar, an online sort of cohort, all those things. There's like Ice Physio, which has their CrossFit based program. There's Barbell Rehab, which is global, right? There's Pain Free Performance is still doing this with physical therapists. My friend Justin has Rehab Rebuilt, which is teaching, everything from isometrics to plyometrics.
Barbell medicine,
From
and
barbell medicine
also
has been
active life.
huge. Active life is massive, right? And so I think that is obviously speaking to the desire of people after they graduate to learn more about this. One, because it's what they're interested in, but two, I think that has to speak to they feel like there's a deficit in their knowledge coming out. And so they're looking for ways to fill that after graduation.
And it's interesting too, because if you look at all the people who are leading, and even like Prescript for that matter,
Oh
leading
yeah.
all of those educational initiatives or organizations, brands, they're all guys that are around your age who kind of have the same perspective and point of view on where the industry is lacking and like merging. So it's like you guys are really driving a lot of that change, I think, in the way people think about these two practices, kind of integrating. And I think the fitness culture is probably driving more of it versus like the physical therapy side driving.
Totally. Yeah, fitness culture, how do you gain the skills to work with the type of population you want to work with? There's been a sports clinical specialist for a long time and an orthopedic clinical specialist for a long time. The orthopedic is more, advanced testing and intervention from a manual therapy standpoint. The sports clinical specialist would get you the skill set of like an athletic trainer, and you'd be prepared to be on the field with athletes. Um, but if you want to have a business in a CrossFit gym, or you want to work with strength athletes, you want to work with, you know, high school athletes not on the field, but in the off season, or be the niche, when your athletic trainer at school needs to refer out, I want it to be to me. Yeah, those aren't necessarily the ideal fellowship tracks. And so having lots of options for continuing education is awesome. And so I think, we don't need to wait or even necessarily keep talking about, what needs to happen inside the doctor of physical therapy program. I think we just need more and more emphasis on, okay, you graduated, you're competent, you're entry level, just like anything. Now now it's your opportunity to go learn about the things you're really, really interested in. The same way, a medical practitioner decides which fellowship, residency, advanced residency, right? You don't graduate as an ICU physician. That's 6 more years. You don't graduate as a, cardio, as a vascular surgeon. That's probably 8 more years. And they've chosen to just go a mile deep on this one thing. And I think we have the ability to do that, just not inside of our school curriculum.
Yeah. What do you think are some of the things that have helped you be a better coach or differentiate yourself in the market because you had the DPT background? Obviously, there's a
Oh,
level of elevation
yeah.
and like that perception, like you're a doctor,
Yeah.
from a client perspective, but
Uh, I have an unfair advantage when it comes to assessing how people move and my understanding of pain and the factors that contribute to pain. And both of those things allow me, fortunately, I think, to be an optimist about what people can achieve, to keep opening more windows and more doors for them, more detours that I can take to get to the same destination versus, the thing I knew how to do didn't work because it hurt. And that's basically a dead end versus like, oh, I see 3 windows we could go through on this wall that someone else might see as being like a brick wall. And I have the key to open all 3 windows, and we can just go through one. If it doesn't work, we'll come back, we'll go through the next one. If that doesn't work, then we'll go through the third one. So it's, yeah, I think it's the movement assessment on an individual level, helping people understand that even the most standard exercise can probably be customized to fit their body in a way that works. And then understanding how to help people identify the factors that may be causing them anywhere from discomfort to pain, and how it's a yellow light and not a red light.
I love that. I don't know if you do this, but the amount of, well, I see this coming through just from a demand perspective with my husband, but the amount of consultation requests he gets from people who are, up against facing potential surgery, or, people recommending imaging and things like that. His ability to sort of like ease their stress and like give them a different perspective that isn't medical intervention at that level, but like let's actually use movement to treat you, and the
Yes.
perspective he's able to help them like work through. It's such an interesting business opportunity for you guys, just even opening that as a service, I think, and making it more something that's more known, and because it's obviously there's desire, and I think people have a lot of lack of hope in the medical industry in general, and would rather give their hard-earned money to someone who's going to give them a different perspective.
Yeah. I mean, the amount of fear and anxiety that comes from an imaging report is unbelievable. And the statistics about the increased medical cost associated with like an early MRI or even an early X-ray. I mean, it's thousands of dollars of difference. And then the outcomes of, surgery, non-surgery, the outcomes of I got an image versus I didn't get an image, right? I mean, unless there's an imminent risk to which you need an orthopedic intervention, whether or not the number of millimeters of partial tearing in your rotator cuff versus like I just have a rotator cuff injury. I mean, the treatment is going to be essentially the same, right? It's all about what feels good, what doesn't feel good, what movements can you do a lot of that make you feel better, what movements can you only do a few of that make you feel worse? How do we manage the volume of those things? Thinking like a coach, is it load that's the problem? Is it volume that's the problem? Is it range of motion that's the problem? Is it the fact that you're not sleeping that's the problem? Is it the fact that, everything is inflammatory in your life that's the problem? Yeah, it's really interesting. I've had so many conversations with people who bring in an X-ray or an MRI, and they're like, all right, just heads up, this is really bad. And they send it to me. And it's like, this is the most normal MRI I've ever seen. You have like mild age-related changes that are totally in line with what I would expect.
Yeah.
But
Speaking
it
of
says
MRIs,
degeneration and all kinds of stuff.
speaking of
Oh,
shoulder injuries.
yeah, welcome to I got one of those too.
I'm back. I'm here.
No, I love that. Thank you so much, David. I was being funny because obviously Brandon's just dealing with a bit of a shoulder injury from BJJ the last 2 weeks and kind of going through.
But we're good.
What were the results of the first? Hey, look at that.
Had a grade 3 AC joint separation.
Oh, those suck.
Yeah, so grade 2, 3, he said, somewhere in between.
Taping it down, like anchoring it at all?
No, but it's not that bad. I don't know. I got back like full range of motion, like about 8 days after. I've just been doing my own little rehab stuff, and I got back to running this past weekend. So we're moving in the right direction.
Moving, it's still connected.
Yeah.
Right on.
So
right,
amazing.
Kandace.
Well, thank you so much, David. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, you're feeling good?
Yes, I'm feeling better. Well, we're moving. It's not 100%, but still hard to put on deodorant on this side. It's a little bit sticky here, but
the everyday life things that you just don't even think about appreciating until something hurts.
Yeah, exactly.
How was your weekend?
Good?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Weekend was good.
Oh,
yeah,
good.
Weekend what did I do this weekend? So I watched football, had fantasy team. My fantasy team did terrible. And then what else? Went to a farmer's market on Saturday. Yeah, and I ran, which was good because I haven't run since I hurt my shoulder. So it was good to run pain-free, like no pain. Got back to it, working on a couple things for the business. Oh, actually, I had the free group thing that I did this past weekend, free group class. I'm working with another coach at the gym that I train out of. And we've been putting together a little idea for like a group class for the foreseeable future. So we're working on the little details of that, hopefully launching that in October. But we did like a first little teaser class this weekend. It turned out really good. I think it was almost 20 people there. So it was really good. It was nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I was going to say, just because obviously you're so invested in the fight world, it's been a lull of a few weeks without any really big fights happening. But then this weekend we get two. We get boxing and UFC.
Yeah, well, last weekend was actually some really good fights. Caio Barrio and Nasruddin.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That was this weekend.
Yeah, there's a couple of really good fights this weekend. And then,
I forgot because it was early in the day. Normally we watch at night, but it was a day fight because they were in France, right?
Mauricio Hufi lost. He was like a really big prospect. He lost to BSD. And there's a couple other really big, good fights on that one. This upcoming weekend, obviously, we got Canelo, Terrence Crawford. It's going to be a huge fight. I love watching Canelo. And Terrence Crawford's kind of right now, Terrence Crawford's like pound for pound, probably best boxer in the world. So that's going to be a really good fight. And then UFC Noche. I don't really like the rest of Noche card, but big fight, obviously the main event, Gene Silva and Diego Lopez, because Silva. So basically, there's four main guys from Fighting Nerds. There's Carlos Praches, Kyle Bajallo, Gene Silva, and then Mauricio Hufi. And Kyle and Hufi fought on Saturday. Prates lost to Ian, and Gene Silva is the only one left that hasn't lost. But they were all undefeated until these last 3 months in the UFC. So they were like crazy. It was like 19-0 in the UFC as a gym. And then obviously Prates lost to Ian. Kyle and Hufi lost this weekend, and then we'll see if Gene Silva can pull it out. But
yeah, I actually really enjoy watching his fighting style. The barking, just I can't get on board with.
yeah, he's crazy. He's a little bit nuts of a fighter. A lot of those guys.
But it's so funny because then he's like off the mic from that kind of thing and like talking about how much he loves his partner and all that. But I'm just like,
it's for the show. A lot of them do it. That's the one thing in fighting that's really weird. They're very obviously they sell fights. Like that's a lot of where they get. Well, not really in the UFC, but boxing is where they get a lot of their money from like the pay-per-views and things like that. So they have to sell the fights. And it's one of the sports where obviously they speak the truth a lot of times of like how they actually feel about somebody. Whereas like it's one thing that bothers me about the other sports is like everyone's so nice in the other sports and fighting. It's just, it's like, I hate this dude.
Well, who do you have for Canelo versus Crawford?
It's hard because like Canelo's kind of turned into he doesn't throw as much volume as he has in the past. Like when he was younger, he was obviously he's become a lot of like a counter puncher, which is tough against a guy like Crawford. I do think Crawford obviously has a lot more skill, but I think Canelo's just fought so many like big names at this point that I don't know that Crawford's gonna have enough to beat Canelo like over the course of 12 rounds. And I think that if Canelo fights how he not like again he's kind of jumped up and down the weight classes. Canelo has, he fought Bivol and he lost, but then his last couple of fights he's kind of slowed down a little bit, but he gets his knockout. I think the one thing I've seen with Canelo is just like he's so smart in the fight and like he's a little bit slow. Like if you ever watch Canelo fight, the first 4 rounds of the fight, you're like, what is he doing? But he's reading. Like he's not throwing a lot of punches. He's waiting to see what happens. He's waiting to see how you react. Then you'll start seeing him throw like that hook to the body is his best shot. So that obviously like he always tries to get that left hook to the body. I think he just needs to throw a little bit more volume, especially with a guy like Crawford. He just needs to kind of win the early rounds if he can. And then I think that from there, I think it's going to be interesting. I hope Canelo wins. Like Canelo's one of my favorite fighters that I've watched. I think he easily can win. I haven't actually looked at the odds to see who's the favorite, but I think it's either going to be like a Canelo late shot that he gets or Crawford's going to like outpoint him. But I do think Canelo will catch him. He's just too smart. I know he's towards the end of his career, but I think he's just too smart of a fighter. He's going to find a shot. So
it's going to be a good weekend.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Well, speaking of fighting and training, let's go talk about the core values, core beliefs that drive everything you do in coaching. And I know you have so much clarity around this. So I just thought it'd be cool to get you to share that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot. I think I've been way more clear on this over the last, 6 months to a year as I've kind of transitioned out of what I was doing and even transitioning into that phase of my life. I had a lot of time to like think. And that was, one of the big things that I've always wanted to focus on. But I think like my mission statement as a business is always like the values that drive me, which is like to influence the highest standard of coaching. And I think that that's something that's always been at like the forefront of what I do. And I didn't know that for a really long time until like I kind of realized it. It was like everything I wanted to do, I wanted it to be the highest quality. I wanted it to be the best experience. I always put myself in front of where I needed to be, who I needed to learn from, whatever I needed to get from the situation. That's what I went to go get. And I think that's, in my eyes, like that is influencing like the highest standard. It's just like, if I want to give the best experience, if I want the best experience out of what I do, then like I have to go find the things necessary. And I think it's just like, my personal values as well, like my personal values in life are autonomy, family, health, purpose, and mastery. So like those are the things that like drive me every single day, which obviously drive me in my business because I am my business right now. So like, those are big pieces of the puzzle for me and what drive, a lot of what I do. Like mastery obviously is getting as good as I possibly can at what I do. My purpose in life really is been more and more defined as like, even just influencing. Like I think just not from the like influencer point of view, but just like being the person I say I am, not leading by example, not just saying random stuff and then going away from it and being like, oh, I'm not going to do that either. Like I think that whole thing, like as I've learned, people can see through the BS, when you're like saying stuff and either not following through, or again, like, I train hard every single day. Like I usually train 7 days a week, and it's not like it's not for me. How do I want to say this? Cause like, I don't look at it as a negative because it's just what I love to do and it teaches me. Like, and I learn so much every time I work out, and I learn so much every time I go through a session. So like me working out 7 days a week is just me researching and developing and learning and feeling every single day. And I think like I've been doing that for, 8 years, right? So you figure the average workout week is 3 days a week. I get 4 extra days a week of learning and researching and developing, which is going to put me ahead. And then I take that and I put myself in the rooms with people who are smarter than me, or I, push myself with like I said, the other values that go on in my life. And that's going to create not only a great experience for myself, because I'll have a business that's going to, fit my life and support my life, but then the people who are inside of that are going to get a really good experience and benefit from someone who's very like focused and clear. Because I think a lot of times with coaching, it ends up being like a very mixed bag of things where people are chasing the wrong things or doing this for the wrong reasons. And you see it. And that's why either people fizzle out, or you hear the bad things that happen inside of some of the gyms or sessions or whatever. And I think that, when you're driven, focused, and you have like true values, and like everybody benefits from that.
I love that. What were some of the things that you have done over the years to get that level of clarity?
Well, I mean, I left. I like went on my own. I left home. I basically did, so much stuff that I wouldn't say I necessarily wanted to do. Like when I moved to Nashville, I just found a job at a gym and I just made it work regardless. Then when I went to Florida, I left again for the next opportunity, and I just continue to put myself in like uncomfortable positions, and I think a lot of people inside of coaching, it gets to a point where, and I just had a podcast episode on this, the first episode of the season of like plateauing as a coach. Right. And I think that a lot of it comes from this point of like, hey, I learned enough and I want to start just making money or building my business, whatever it might be. And there's a fine line between like information hoarding, which is like, you're just taking in information just to have information. And then there's like utilizing it. Right. So one of the things that I think I've done very well is I've kind of really condensed the information that I do listen to, or where I get my information from. And I get it from people that I truly, truly trust, or that I've talked to, or I see that they're doing the work as well. And then from there, I'm doing it myself on a daily basis, right? So not only was I, again, being uncomfortable or putting myself in uncomfortable situations, but like I said, I'm training every day. I'm doing the things that I'm talking about and then testing them out and then being like, does this actually make sense? Because I think one of the biggest things that I learned as a coach was like, we all want to write workouts, right? And we all want to be really good at writing workouts and get results. And sometimes you write workouts and you don't even do them. And then if you were to do them, you'd be like, wow, this doesn't even make sense. Like, why would I have somebody do this, right? Or you're writing an entire month of programming and it's like, in theory, it makes sense in your head. And I say this in other areas too. Like sometimes you're thinking stuff and you say it and you're like, what the hell was I just thinking? Like, it doesn't even make any sense, right? So it's like sometimes you just have to say it or see it or do it. And you're just kind of like, well, that doesn't even make any sense whatsoever. And you reflect and you refine and then you understand and you get better at that process. And I think at some point, obviously, you trust yourself enough that you've learned to take that step. But I think in the time being, like, to that point, you have to be uncomfortable. You have to keep training. You have to put yourself in that student position as much as possible. And I think that's what gets you to that point eventually, where you have the confidence to be like, hey, I can make a decision. I've seen this enough times. I've done this enough times that, like, I know this is the right decision, or at least it's going to lead me down the right path to find that answer. I think
So,
that answer.
no, it does totally.
Right.
In CCP, when you have to like put pen to paper and
Yeah.
either Carl or James like really forces you to like get clear on those core values from when you wrote those down years ago back then to
Yeah.
now, the clarity that you have, has anything changed or is it pretty much the same or
Yeah. I
just
mean,
for you to share a
100%.
bit about
I
that?
mean, like, obviously, I think it's more, I think the verbiage or whatever you want to call it, like, has gotten a lot clearer, like a lot more. Um, yeah, I think a lot more clear, a lot more defined. And I think obviously with my experiences, it's gotten a lot more defined. Like, I've been able to take those initial thoughts and run with them. And I think, like I said, obviously and I think this is part of it, because I think building a business, you know, I saw something the other day. I don't know how true it was. It was like the listed like the biggest businesses in the world and what they started as, and like none of them was like the same as what they started as. And I
It's
think
like
that if
Amazon
you're,
starting as a bookstore, right?
yeah,
And
or
now
like
they sell
IKEA
everything.
was like a pen store or something like that, or I don't even know, like they create whatever it might have been. But I think that's part of the thing as well, where it's like you start something as a business, it has an idea, it has like a value, or it has whatever. And then if you're doing it right over time, that vision gets clear, that purpose gets clear, that what you're meant to do gets clear. And I think it just guides you along that way. I think it's just not getting stuck in the beginning of being like, I make pens, I have to make pens. It's like, I'm making pens, but now people are asking me for whatever it ends up being, right? Where, like, I've said this multiple times, like when I started coaching, I had my own gym and I was just training like older women, older men, people who never stepped foot in the gym. And it just kind of progressed into me training champion fighters, and it just kind of went with it. And I was like, all right, I guess I'm going to go with it. And now it's like, hey, I've done that. I've done this. I want to find something in between where I have both of those. But like, those experiences are so, polar opposite of the spectrum that I feel like you need them. Right. But I also think if you stop yourself from experiencing something like that, you end up just shooting yourself in the foot, as opposed to being like, hey, like, let me at least try this a little bit. And if you're meant to go somewhere, you're going to go somewhere. Like, there's going to be signs and things that you just have no control over, where it's just going to work out and you have to kind of go with it. But I think that's, yeah, I would say that's probably the biggest thing. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
So I know I was sharing with you guys. Last week I posted this series of 5 reels that was about getting clarity on your content strategy and helping you sound different in the helping you create content that's from your unique voice and that is unique to you and that can't be replicated by anyone else. And so that got me just going down these rabbit holes of little exercises that we could do to get more clarity on that. One of the things I thought was like, okay, if someone were to watch 10 of your videos or 10 of your YouTube videos, 10 of your videos on your Instagram page, what's the like one overarching idea that you hope they take away?
I think the one overarching idea is that fitness isn't like, there is no right answer to fitness. And I think that like a lot of this stuff, people try to get out there that they have the answer, they have the direction. And I think a lot of it's just like fitness is great because it can be done in so many ways. I think that obviously we have a lot of answers. We have a lot of things that are like, hey, you shouldn't do this, right? And maybe you should do a little bit of this. But I think at the end of the day, however we get to that end goal isn't so set in stone as people say it is. And I think that, when they come into like my, I guess, world of my opinion about fitness, I want them to understand that like there's room to grow and that it can become a lot of different things as long as you trust your process. And even like we're just talking about, like if you have your vision, like it's really kind of, you can make that into whatever it needs to be. Right. And I don't think there has to be any sort of direct answer of like, hey, it's got to be this way because, this study said it was this way, or it has to be this way because 6 other people before you did it this way. It's like, hey, it might work. but I also think I want people to understand that, like, there's great information, but it can be designed in a way, and literally what OPEX is built on, really, which is like the individualized fitness, is like it can be built in a way that literally fits your life, so you enjoy it and not just feel miserable, right? Because I said this 100 times, but sometimes we look at certain people in athletics or sport or whatever, and we're like, wow, I want to look like that. And it's like, cool, they're probably miserable, like they can't eat food, they're not allowed to go to their friend's house and just enjoy a night. Like there's sacrifices for every single aspect of being fit or looking a certain way. And the aspects of some of that is like, I want you to learn how to be fit, how to enjoy life, and at the end of the day, do what like actually fulfills you.
I love that. Awesome. Well, I'm going to have Jason join us, and maybe both of you guys can answer this question as we transition. What is your current favorite breakfast?
Ooh, breakfast.
Brandon, you go first.
I've been killing these pre-cooked meatballs from Trader Joe's. So good. Put some eggs. Put in some eggs. No, put in some eggs on it. And I'm a big maple syrup fan, so I just put some maple syrup on the outside.
So a savory sweet combo.
Yeah, I love it.
Where do you get the maple syrup from?
I forgot which one it is. It's something from I'm in New York, so Hannaford. But Hannaford's like the big supermarket up here, or one of the big supermarkets up here.
Is it like a local maple syrup?
It's a natural one, not like it's a little bit more of like the liquidy one. Obviously, like that comes straight from a tree. I try to get as natural syrup as possible because I love syrup, so I try not to.
Dude, so good. Like some of that stuff, like you get natural. I was somewhere and they were having like a farmer's market, and there was like a bunch of people selling honey, like all of that honey. But it was so natural. It was like so good.
I mean, Vermont's obviously like 90 minutes away, so like that's where the real syrup's from.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Vermont.
Yeah, that's dope. That's dope.
Might have to get some better because there's a farmer's market on the weekends here. I might have to get some from there.
Definitely.
I've been killing that breakfast.
Jay, what's your go-to breakfast right now?
I'm a smoothie guy. So I'll normally like do jiu-jitsu in the morning, and I come back and then it's like a 40-minute dash to shower and get the kids off from school. So I dump like a cup of frozen like berries and kale into a blender, a little peanut butter, a little honey, a little cinnamon, some protein, water. That's my go-to.
Now, the real question is, do you like savor it or do you chug it? Because my husband chugs it and I'm like, come on, don't you want to enjoy that? It's a lot of calories.
I can't remember the last time I savored anything.
Yeah.
It's just like down the hatch, move on to the next thing.
I eat so fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
You guys are just fueling your machines. That's it.
Yeah. Morning time, I'm so limited. I got like 35 minutes. Shower, change, get the kids to school.
I don't have any of those excuses. I just eat fast.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, B. Appreciate you.
Yes, I appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Later, bud.
Hey.
See ya.
How's your week off too?
Good. I'm of an interesting age where I wake up and something hurts and I don't know why, but I'm still the age that I think I'm indestructible. So I continue to work through it. And then I'm just like, fucked. Like today I woke up, it was like, my back was killing me for some reason. I'm like, whatever. I'll continue to do everything. So, I did jiu-jitsu and I did like my afternoon run. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't even walk right now.
Were you boxing yesterday?
Yesterday, no. Yesterday was just some jiu-jitsu and strength training.
Okay, I saw something a recent video or story of you boxing. So I didn't know if that maybe you did something in boxing rotational. Boxing
is fascinating to me. There's a guy that has a gym right next to mine. He's a 2-time WBC champion. He's from like Russia, and it's like, it's great. Like, because growing up, I grew up on the Rocky movies, and you look at like, Rocky training or Apollo Creed training. It's like, no frills in the gym. And like, that's his gym, So nowadays where everyone has like, the newest stuff, newest equipment, like you walk in there, it's like a ring, heavy bags, At first, there's like no music. You can't even see the clock. It's just this monster in this Russian accent just telling you what to do. But the science to me of boxing and the footwork and angles, it's fascinating.
Nothing will make you feel more awkward than like learning how to move in a boxing stance, forward and backward, side to side. Like you just feel so like you're like, well, I have 3 left feet all of a sudden.
It's crazy. I know. And then like, when you spar someone that really knows what they're doing, you feel helpless. You're like, I can't do anything. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't know if I shared this with you. I actually met my husband because he's a power lifter, but he was recovering from a back injury, decided to take up boxing, moved to Miami to train with this boxing coach. I met him while I was out on a big shoot for doing some stuff for hybrid back then, and met him. But when we were dating, went through his first fight as an amateur, and that was like the most tense experience I've ever had, just like watching someone, the adrenaline dump that happens, like you feel like you're not going to make it through the rounds, even though there was like a year of training and prep for it. But I ended up doing a lot of pad work during that time just to like play with boxing and just doing like mitt work combinations and things like that. It is so much fun, but so challenging. So I love seeing you do it.
Yeah. And then it's more of a challenge when someone's trying to hit you back, right? You're like, wow, this is a whole nother level of it.
Yeah, even just playing, I don't know when you're ever like learning the sparring process, if you play like the shoulder tap game, where you're like, you go, I go, and you're with a sparring peer and all your goal is to just like either hand tap their shoulders and you're back and forth. Even that feels like that anxiety kind of comes.
Totally.
Crazy. Well, today we were chatting about core values or core beliefs that kind of like underpin all that you guys do as coaches. So I wanted to just open that conversation up with you. Obviously, I'm sure this has evolved over the years for you, but what are those kind of fundamental core beliefs that really drive you as a human, as the guy behind the coaching business, and then obviously influence the business for you?
Honesty, empathy, passion, knowledge, and communication. Those are the ones that really drive me. And kind of like,
if you had to pick a top 3, do you filter them by any way, or are they just like all mesh?
I think like anything in life, like periodization, like everything sort of meshes and blends, but I would say, I think like going through cycles of life, some might weigh more heavily than others. And I keep thinking about empathy. Sometimes I'll be more empathetic. Sometimes I won't, depending upon the situation, the time, the person. But always honesty, always passion, and then always intelligence. I think those are like the 3 that will always kind of like weigh the heaviest. And then communication and empathy are strong right in there.
Expand a little bit on honesty, because there's levels to honesty, right? And you have, as a coach, like the level at which you surfaced whatever deserves that moment of honesty is like obviously a big decision. I don't know. What does that spark for you?
Honesty with yourself, honesty with your clients, honesty with your pursuit, and I think you can keep those 3 things. Meaning like honesty with yourself, to me, comes down to holding yourself accountable and keeping score. Making sure you're doing what you need to be doing, the right things based off what you say your goals are. Because, actions always speak louder than words, and you can say all the stuff in the world, but if you're not doing it, like, you're not being honest with yourself. And I think being honest with your athletes as well, not sugarcoating stuff, not fluffing them up just to get paid, but being honest with them, but honest in the right way, and make sure the work you're doing with them is honest. Like you're really putting in the work to do what you say you're going to do. If you're doing individual design programming, then do individual design programming. You're not giving them a template and fluffing it up for them. If you tell them you're going to deliver a certain thing, then deliver that certain thing, whether it's the amount of times you can feedback, communication, conversations, discussions. And, I think if you do those 2 things, then you could set yourself up for success, and you come out the other end in a good position.
And I like that you balance both honesty with empathy, right? Because I think that allows you to deliver whatever honest communication you have to deliver to a client in a situation that could be taken many ways. Like the fact that you pair it with empathy probably changes the whole dynamic.
Yeah, and that's where communication gets blended in as well. And I think communication is what separates good coaches from great coaches. And communication is how you create buy-in. Communication is how you are continually able to develop and work with athletes and progress them and understand where they are and kind of really get a feel for that person. And to me, communication is what's going to continually create the ground of how coaches can separate themselves from AI. It's like, why can't someone just type in a program with Chat GPT, because it can deliver a fantastic program with proper progressions and develop through a 6 or 8 week training block and then progress from there. And why should someone pay you and not do that? And to me, the separation is because being a great coach comes down to understanding the science of strength and conditioning and then understanding the application of communication. And when you can combine those two, that's what makes you a great coach. And that's what's going to separate you from the AI world, is your ability to communicate and understand humans based off lifestyles and what they have and where they are in life cycles, right? Because that's going to change for people as well. And something that always drives me crazy is people think that they can put the word honest before a sentence, no matter how bad the sentence is, and feel like it's an okay sentence because they said I'm being honest. Like, hey, I'm just being honest, but you're a fucking dick. Well, okay, but that's still a dumb thing to say, right? So for me, I think people need to be empathetic as well. Like, if you can't yell at someone, then don't yell at them. You need to be able to communicate and be honest with them in a way that they can hear it and understand it, and this can be effective, because conflict isn't bad. People need to understand conflict resolution, and that goes with being a coach and an athlete as well. The more you can communicate, the more you can navigate hard times, because there will be hard times. There will be challenging times and challenging situations and challenging conversations. But people either bravado up or shy away if they don't understand that ground, and you have
It's
to.
interesting.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just thinking, like,
No.
it's when you hire a coach because you want to be called on your BS and you want to progress and you want that mirror. But then anytime that mirror is there, your immediate reaction is just to kind of like resist, or that it creates friction or tension, even though you're asking for it. So even though you want that feedback, I catch myself all the time because I'm always like, please, no ego. Even when it comes to, like, I don't know, content, something I wrote, but because I created it, there's this inherent like authorship kind of emotion that comes with that work being critiqued. And you immediately, I'm like, okay, no defenses, take the feedback, work with the feedback, iterate and improve. But it's just human nature to kind of have that reaction of like, oh gosh, do I really want the feedback, right?
Yeah, but I also think too, to go at that point, that's where great coaches, leaders, communicators separate themselves, because they understand how to present that feedback to the person in a way where that person can hear it and not get defensive, based upon the person's archetype and how they're going to receive information, and your relationship with that person can matter a lot with the weight of what they're saying and or how they say it. And the more people can understand that, then the more that they can phrase or put words together in a way that the person listening can be like, can one disarm them, right? And then put them in a position to listen. They're okay, like that makes sense, and I've learned how to do that a lot with my family and my kids. Sometimes like with my kids, I'd be like, people pay me a shit ton of fucking money to coach them. I was like, and you are like brushing me off. I'm like, well, I can't keep saying that to them. They don't care. To them, I'm their dad, right? So it's like, how can I now communicate with them in a way where it's coming from a dad, but they're gonna listen, right? And my wife's like, I have to be careful of how I say things and when I say them to her as well, right? And especially if she's working out. Like if she's working out, like I can't coach her, because if I coach her, say anything, like, so I got to kind of put in a position where she's gonna come up and ask me, hey, what do you think about this? Right? Like, well, in that situation, so it's understanding that stuff, because then that's where you get people to listen more. And I think the only way you can get better at things like that is just by continually putting yourself in practice, right? Everything is like reps. Like you and I were talking about boxing. It's, you can hit all the mitts in the world, but if you don't have time and reps of someone hitting you back, it's a completely different ballgame. You have to get that time and exposure. And that's why, the best boxers in the world might have 150 amateur fights that you didn't know about before they become pros. And they have all this time under tension and reps, just like with lifting. And same thing with learning how to communicate. You have to get reps. You can't just read material and study it and be like, oh, I'm a good communicator. You have to have that what's the word I'm looking for? I don't even know what the word I'm looking for. I was trying to sound really cool and fancy with a big word and I forgot it, right? But having that ability to just navigate the waters of communication, because it's going to be the ebbs and flows and the pushbacks, and the more you can navigate, the better. It's hard, right? Because sometimes your ego does kick in and you're just like, you know what, fuck it. I'm just going to say what I'm going to say. And it is what it is.
Yeah. I think though, the more you age, it's like you can recognize that any of that resistance, or even if you didn't respond to something the way you would have wanted to, within instance, like the time to your ability to recognize my response could have been better. I see this person is trying to help me. I'm going to go and apologize to them for my reaction and not being more receptive. And I'm going to explain to them how much what they shared with me is impacting my behavior moving forward. Like that time delay that maybe it was a lot longer when you were younger. As you age, I feel like it shrinks, right? The better you get, it shrinks. So that's cool to see. Do you see that happening with clients as they age with you, or just as you've been around in the coaching world for years, like because they've seen you around, they want to take that feedback from you right away and like apply it and move on and improve?
Yeah, I think if I heard you right, are you saying like when I give clients feedback, do they take it well? Is that what you're asking? Or are you asking like...
I kind of blended two questions there for sure. One, I was just kind of like stating that, but yeah, then I was kind of leaning into this thought of around clients receiving feedback while hearing the intent of what you're sharing with them. If there are moments of resistance, like is that cycle of reviewing, improving?
So I usually always try to phrase feedback in some form of a feedback loop or feedback sandwich, right? Where I'm always going to phrase something they did well or right, like right away, you know, and that'd be like, then there could be different situations, but if we have specific KPIs that we're shooting for, whether it's like a mindset or performance or pacing or times or weights, whatever, I'm always going to try to reference something that went well and they did right. But based off what our goal was, this situation, you know, X, Y, and Z or X, and I try to make it something that's very simple, occurred. And the way we can get better at that or adjust that is this, right? So it's like give them the problem that happened, but give them a solution to it. Or depending on the person where they are, like, well, what do you think? You know, someone might come up to me, man, this didn't go well. Why is that? And I'll be like, I don't know. What do you think? And that's not me not coaching. It's me trying to coach them more, because I'm like, all right, if I have a games athlete that I'm working with, they have to understand how to recognize that fault and make those micro adjustments like right away. And they're always relying on me to do that, then that's going to limit their ability to do that in a game or between matches if I don't see them, right? And I'll say that I'll do that a lot with my son too, with basketball and baseball. If he misses a shot or, you know, swings off, I'll film it, or I'll talk to him when he's ready to hear me. And I'll usually always start off be like, hey, can we have a conversation? You ready to have some feedback? And we've done that enough where he's like, no. I'm like, all right, cool. Then I don't say anything. And he's like, then he'll eventually be like, okay, what is it? And I'm like, all right, X, Y, and Z, like, what do you think? What is that? Or if he's like, hey, how can I make this adjustment better? I'm like, well, how do you think you can make it better, right? And I want to kind of hear their reasoning, whether it's my kids or athletes, and hear how they break it down. Because to me, that's the way they're going to continually develop autonomy for themselves in those situations, right? Now, newcomers and beginners, I'm not like that. I'll give them more structured, hard feedback. And usually my feedback is very quick, especially like on CoachRx or email. Like I'm not a wordsmith. I'm like a 3-word sentence, like in and out, like done, move on to the next thing, right? So people have kind of, and I'll say that right away, and I work with them like, hey, when I get feedback, like if you give me a long paragraph, I read it and I appreciate it. I appreciate more communication than not. Like I want you to over communicate with me, but just know when I give feedback to you, it's gonna be very short and to the point, right? So don't take it like I'm being a dick or annoying. That's just how I give feedback and how I communicate. But I always try to phrase it in nice ways. So I feel like I'm being very long-winded, but newer athletes, I always try to phrase feedback, presenting something they did well, and then picking out what we could improve upon based upon what the goal was, and then provide them a solution to it. and then trying to get them more practice reps to do it and improve upon it slowly and surely. With people who are way more experienced, same thing. Like I say, all right, that went pretty decent. You did well there. Therefore, it's good. X, Y, Z. But based off where you need to be and what we're doing, like this occurred, or you did that, or that happened. Your mindset went here. You dropped your head here. Something happened at that point. What happened? Talk to me more about that. Like, what were you saying to yourself? What's the situation? Okay, well, how can you do that? How can you be better at that? And try to give them the chance to build that autonomy to do for themselves, I think is key as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, I guess in your prescriptions for your ID clients, would you, if you had to like percent breakout, prescription, obviously prescriptions in program design is going to be a priority, but for lifestyle, like of your client roster, what percentage of them are you also doing lifestyle prescription?
That's a tough one. What's your definition of lifestyle prescription?
I'm thinking more specifically like the actual feature in CoachRx where you're prescribing like if it's like daily movement or anything meal related or anything sleep related, that you're using those actual prescription features. Because I was going to ask you a question about like transparency with the wearables integration coming and how you think that's going to change the communication dynamic between you and your clients.
Yeah, so I don't use that feature of it to its full capacity. Like what I'll generally do is at the end of the week, I'll always attach a breakdown of them keeping score based off lifestyle prescriptions of sleep quality, nutrition, hydration, recovery technique, movement prep, and they got to grade themselves.
You more use the weekly check-in component to gather that intel?
Yeah, just because I feel like for a lot of people, when it's every single day, for some of my people, it's just too much. They just didn't do it. It turned in, they would skip it. And then it turned into this one more thing that they just weren't doing. So now I just do it one time at the end of the week for them to check off on like a Sunday.
And your clients are also more advanced too, right? Where they're not like working on a lot of these fundamental things.
Well, I think everybody needs to work on those fundamental things because it's like I have to continually work on these fundamental things. I think the fundamental things are what build the base for everything else. And I think where a lot of people go askew is where they forget about that. They forget about mastering the fundamentals and really honing in on things and adjusting those things as they change. Like right now, like my sleep quality has been terrible over the past couple of weeks. Like my wife's been really sick. My little daughter was sick. So my quality of sleep has been bad, right? And it affects me hard. Like I'm someone where it's like, if I don't get good quality sleep for a certain amount of time, like I'm a bear, I'm a disaster, where some people can do well on limited sleep. And I'm trying to go back and experimenting with different things to do to improve that with what's in my control, right? Obviously my wife's coughing at night and my baby's up. That's out of my control. It is what it is. I got to deal with that. But I think people lose sight of the fundamentals and how important they are and how they hold the ground for everything else to keep building upon. So I think that's something that people have to keep reinforcing and checking in on themselves with, stress management, hydration, nutrition, sleep, movement quality, movement prep.
I was going to share this with you because we have most of the ambassadors are currently in the beta test right now for the health data and trends, which includes wearables integrations and then allows the coach on the back end, if they're prescribing certain lifestyle RXs, they'll start to track and graph a lot of those data. But even if they're not prescribing that, there's a new dashboard that appears that gives you just over time trends across different lifestyle health metrics. So let's say you're tracking like HRV, sleep, steps, macros. It'll display a lot of this trended data based on the integration happening. So you have access to a lot of this intelligence now to inform consultations or just general communication. Let's say like what athlete has a rough training day. They report it in the comments, but they maybe don't give you the context about sleep the night before. But then you'll have that dashboard view to see, well, your sleep has been trending pretty poorly the last 4 nights, probably. And then you have that intelligence to share in the consultation. But what the coaches who are in the beta have started to share is just the amount of transparency that now exists for, even if they would have prescribed in the past 6 to 8K steps a day, and client would have been logging as complete. Well, now the wearables integration is there. The data is showing like the honest number, and maybe it's actually 4,000 steps a day.
Right.
So we're starting to have a lot of this dialogue around like what coaches are now going to have a lot of transparency should their clients aim to connect this data, and now going to have to address a lot of these honest moments of what we were marking complete as before is actually not complete.
Yeah, I love that. I can't wait for that. I think that's awesome. I used to try and do a lot of stuff with tracking HRV with athletes, and it just got they just stopped doing it. They either stopped doing it or they'd freak out over the numbers. But I think having it, if it's my understanding from what you just said, the CoachRx system will automatically link up with whatever wearable they have, and when they like connect it, it just automatically uploads to the system. Is that correct? So they don't.
It'll just feed you the data.
Yeah, so that's perfect because they won't have to physically go in and type it in. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting dynamic around communication. So I'm excited for you to test it and then share back.
For sure. I'm a little upset I wasn't on the beta group. Who was in charge?
I'll add you.
Add me to the beta group, Kandace. What are we doing?
I'll for sure add you. Okay. I added all the ambassadors about 2 weeks ago. So they have a little bit of a leg up on you, but I'll add you to it.
Okay. Yeah. Add me to it.
Awesome. Well, is there anything that you have going on this week that you're just hyped about that would be good to close out on?
Nothing new. Nothing exciting. 13U baseball on the weekend. My daughter's volleyball games for high school. My youngest one just crushing mac and cheese, and that's it. That's all I got.
And you're just trying to get this back feeling better.
Yeah, I'll be good by tomorrow, right? I like to think I'm like Wolverine, so I'll be here. I'll be healed, hopefully.
You do look like Wolverine.
I've heard that. I've heard that a lot.
He could be your doppelganger for sure.
Yeah,
Hugh Jackman.
For sure. Yeah, it's not a bad doppelganger. It's not a bad doppelganger.
Not at all.
Yeah.
All right, Jay, I'll let you go. I appreciate you. I hope you have a great week.
Yeah. Thank you, Kandace. Appreciate it.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Later.